But we have a very special guest on the line with us right now. He did work in the Trump administration. It wasn't very long, but he was there. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He's known as the Mooch, ladies and gentlemen. What better person to talk about election night than him? He is Anthony Scaramucci, who joins us right now on the line. Anthony, thank you so much for being here. We know you're busy. How are you?
I miss the city of Vegas. I'm happy to be on the phone with you. How's everything?
Everything's good, Anthony. We haven't spoken to you in a while. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and your honesty on television and radio. So I have to ask you this. You predicted Joe Biden was going to win, as I did. It's not over yet. What are your thoughts on what's taken place last night? And because it seemed like Trump was a big favorite last night, and then this morning, things have changed. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I didn't predict that he was going to win. I predicted he was going to annihilate Trump.
Right.
So I got that wrong, and I just want to make that admission to your listeners. And so what I want to say about what happened is you can't trust the polling data anymore. This polling data is faulty. We have to accept that. Number two, you have to admire what the president did here. He got 76 million votes. I know he's at 67 right now, but trust me, when everything is tabulated, he'll have the second highest vote count in U.S. history, second only to Joe Biden. He beat the Obama 2008 number. So you have to understand that there's something going on in our country. The president blew the pandemic. He destroyed the U.S. economy. He made us weaker in terms of our alliances. He lied about the science, politicized the masks. He's got racist invective, bellicosity of rhetoric. He bullies individual citizens like my wife, who happens to be a suburban housewife here on Long Island, and yet he got 76 million people to vote for him.
Incredible.
So you got to take a pause there and say, okay, there's something systemically wrong with the country. There's a very large group of people that feel left out or disaffected from the system. We have to heal that as a nation. And if we don't heal that as a nation, we're going to have a specter and a rise of nationalism and populism. If you study U.S. or European history, that always ends badly. But the vice president won this election, and the vice president won it quite handily, actually, because he won the popular vote, and he will now win the Electoral College vote. And so he'll be the 46th president of the United States. Mr. Trump is already talking about running again in 2028. His legal team has already told him that this is going to be an impossibility, remote impossibility to get this thing done, a remote possibility, I should say. And so, listen, it's over. It'll be sanctified in the next 24 to 48 hours. The betting markets are with me at 92%.
Correct.
And I, my inside track inside the Biden campaign is they actually think they're going to win Pennsylvania as well. And so,
wow.
So, but even if they don't win Pennsylvania, they've got it. And if all of this stuff had been called at 11 p.m. last night, and one of the reasons, this is a great irony, what happened, he likely won because of the pandemic, but the results got delayed as a result of the pandemic, meaning the absentee ballots, all that other stuff
Correct.
is sludging up the system. Of course, Mr. Trump did something that was anti-democratic, anti-American.
Can I ask you about that, Anthony, if I may, and interject? Because and I agree with everything you just said, by the way. Let's talk about that, Anthony. Let's talk about Donald Trump's comments this morning. He said Democrats were stealing the election, that they're frauds, disenfranchising voters. He said, quote, I won the election. He said he wants voting to stop, but unless it's in Arizona and in Nevada. He wants voting to stop, and then he contradicted himself. And then, Anthony, as you know, the vice president takes the microphone and showed just a hint of class and contradicted the president and said he did want all votes to be counted. What do you make, Anthony Scaramucci, of the comments that Donald Trump made at around 2 a.m.?
Listen, it's just more evidence that he's a systemic danger to our society, and it's more evidence that that sort of personality, we have to get him as far as away from the office of the United States presidency as possible. And so even Chris Christie, who's a personal friend of mine, we're at odds recently because of his support for the president. And his relationship with the president has been a disaster for Governor Christie. He's gotten COVID from him, and he's been destroyed. His reputation has really been hurt in the United States. He said last night that was reprehensible and un-American to make statements like that. And listen, but, we've come to accept those statements from President Trump. We've been anesthetized by those statements, and now he's tweeting out more conspiracy garbage this morning and this afternoon, and that's something that really troubles me because 76 million people who feel left out of the system. And I grew up in a blue-collar family that was economically aspirational because my dad had pretty good wages. Those very same families are now economically desperational. And it's very hard to blame that on yourself, and so you have to blame it on something else, and this is why you're open to the ideas of conspiracy. And Mr. Trump is throwing Duraflame logs on those things. It's reprehensible, but you got to wake up. The U.S. has got to wake up. My Democratic friends have to wake up. You can't go hard left in the U.S., not ready for that. You can't be the Jeremy Corbyn of the U.S.
Right.
or AOC,
Agree.
Not ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up. 76 million people need our help. We got to come up with the right policy solutions.
Agree.
When we do that, their anger will be abated, and they'll start feeling more plugged into the system, and we can put down this nonsense known as nationalism and populism.
But I have to ask you this, Anthony, because you know this man very well. You worked with him. You've known him for decades. Will the president of the United States leave? I mean that seriously. Is he just going to leave the White House? I think it's a fair question.
Well, I think Mitch McConnell's going to force him out. I mean, you have to remember, these are ruthless guys. McConnell's gotten 400 judicial appointments, 3 Supreme Court picks, and they'll dispatch him quickly because they'll recognize that will not be something that they want their legacies tarred with permanently. The notion that they were there to subvert the 244-year-old republic known as the American representative democracy. So they're going to dispatch him, but I think they're going to let him erupt the Trump volcanic anger and all that expiation for a little period of time, and then they're going to tap him on the shoulder and say, it's time to go. And knowing Trump as well as I know him, he only thinks of TRUMP. When he does a new search, it's TRUMP. Mm-hmm. It's not USA. It's not YOU. Trust me, could care less about YOU. And so in his best interest, he will leave. He will leave peacefully, and he will negotiate for himself and his family a way to stay out of jail.
That was my next question. Do you think Donald Trump has a lot of legal problems, and do you think the family is in a lot of trouble after he leaves office?
Well, I'm a rule of law person, and so I want to say that every person, including the Trump family and Donald Trump himself, deserve the presumption of innocence. But I'm also somebody that knows when you hear clippity-clop outside of a window, it is not a zebra, it is a horse. And so, when something is this obvious, you have to be worried. Well, we'll see what happens. I think it'll be a disgrace for the American people to put a ex-president in jail. I hope that doesn't happen. I don't want to further banana-size the Republic of the United States. But we'll have to see. I hope it doesn't happen, frankly, because I want the country to move on, and we have to find a way to heal. And we ultimately have to find a way to unify. And President Trump's legacy will be what James Mattis, the former Secretary of Treasury, Defense, said about him, that he's a divider, and that in his lifetime, he never saw a president trying to divide the people and using that bellicosity of rhetoric and the bully pulpit to do that more than President Trump. And it's a bad legacy, frankly, but I'm proud to have stood against him over the last 15 months. I broke from him in August of last year when he had his highest approval ratings.
Yeah.
My Republican friends said it was a kamikaze mission, but I really do think myself and the Lincoln Project and my fellow Republicans that broke did make a difference here. And I'm not saying me personally, but I'm saying the collection.
No, I think you did. Listen, you did.
Made a difference.
You did. You did.
And again, I'm not trying to overstate that or say it self-importantly. I'm just trying to say that we're making a contribution, I hope, to
no question.
What will be a renormalization of our country.
Listen, Anthony, I will give you a tremendous amount of credit. I think you're selling yourself short. I think what you've done in being honest with the American people, I think there's a lot of I know that there's a lot of Republicans out there that respect you for doing that. How about Cindy McCain and the McCain family? You can't tell me that didn't make a difference in Arizona.
I tweeted that out this morning. You know what I said? I said I like our heroes returning from the dead to beat demagogues.
Yep.
Remember that nonsense about the heroes being captured?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I like our heroes returning from the dead to destroy demagogues on behalf of America.
That is such a great point. We only have a few more minutes with you, Anthony. I want to ask you about this. What does it say about this country? You gave the laundry list, for lack of a better term, and I give that same list of why I couldn't support Donald Trump. I think he's just an awful human being. So with that being said, with that list that you gave us, which I agree with, what would you say? What does it say about this country that still, even though Trump, it looks like, is going to lose this election, If Biden didn't win the popular vote by that many. I mean, some people said that he might win the popular vote by 10 million. Now, I didn't believe that, but I thought, I thought it was going to be a landslide. What would you say to those people that still supported Donald Trump? It could be financial reasons, or maybe some people don't like minorities in this country. There's a lot of different reasons why they voted for Donald Trump. What would you say to those people, Anthony, as someone who's known Donald Trump for such a long time?
Well, I would say that I applaud the president for hearing your call and your message about how you're feeling about your lives and the anger related to the disaffection that's going on inside of our system. But he's the wrong messenger, and he's not somebody that's going to unite us. He's not somebody that's going to cure your problems. He may represent you in terms of being an avatar for your anger, and you may enjoy his Twitter feed, but we got to help raise your living standards, and we got to help make the country feel closer economically. And so he's not the person to do that. And what I would say is the message, the bell has been rung very loudly, and there's a very large group of people that are active in the political system that have heard that message, and we've got to fix it. But I'm going to say something to you that no one's going to like. This fix is not a 2-year fix, a 4-year fix. This is going to take 10 to 20 years of good long-term planning and a hybrid intersection of public and private partnerships to fix what's going on in America right now. And so that's one of the issues for politicians. They like talking at each other or over each other on cable news channels as opposed to beginning the process of policy planning and not thinking about policy from left or right, but really what's right or wrong for America. And ultimately, we have to try to be advocates for that standard. I would ask those people to be patient.
Yeah, and I agree with you. A couple more quick questions, Anthony, then we know you got to run. You talk about the word unifying the country, and I agree with you. But how is this country going to be unified when you still have the Senate, Republican majority in the Senate? Isn't it going to be difficult, number one, for Joe Biden to pass anything? But I do believe Joe Biden is going to do a better job of reaching across the aisle. His relationship with John McCain is a perfect example of that. So that'll help, Anthony. But, we're still going to have Mitch McConnell in there. I still think we're going to be a very divided country politically, not as divided as when Trump's been president. But, you talk about unify. How does that happen when you have Republicans still running the Senate?
Well, listen, it requires transformational leadership. And so we've got to pray that at age 78, the oldest person to be inaugurated president of the United States, we have to pray for him and pray that he'll be a transformative post-partisan leader, and that he'll put some chits on the table that Republicans can look at and say, okay, wow, those are Republican ideas. I don't want to be critical of anybody because having had that job, even though it was only for 11 days, I realize how much stress there is in the system and how hard these jobs are. Mm-hmm. But I just want to say, the Obama administration went hard blue. The Trump administration went hard red. And I'm praying and hoping that the Biden administration will start with the color purple.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And if they do that, and they pass an infrastructure deal, or they pass an education deal that they can reach consensus on with the Republicans, and they can take baby steps in that direction, all of a sudden we may start feeling better about ourselves, or we may start feeling that the divided government is reaching what I think most Americans want, which is a fairly good centrist response to our policy dilemmas.
Let's talk quickly about Fox News. As you know, Anthony, last night they called Arizona to Joe Biden. There's a lot of people on the right, including the president, who's attacked Fox News for months now, that are going after Fox News and their credibility. I want to ask you about that. And also, it wasn't that long ago, Anthony, you were making a lot of appearances on Fox News. They gave you 15 or 20 minutes. I saw you on Fox News last week. When you started to give your list of the reasons why you can't support Donald Trump, they kind of cut you off, and they give you like 2 minutes. It's just the hypocrisy of the media. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you've made a lot of TV appearances over the course of the last year or two.
Well, listen, I mean, the thing with Fox, they don't want to upset the president. A lot of those guys are in the tank for him. So when I was articulating reasons why he should not be president, they have a tendency to slice and dice you. And, the goal is to treat you, if you're a Trump supporter, a Biden supporter, if you're like a crash dummy, a Fox News crash dummy. And so I get that, but I also think breaking through that reality distortion field and reaching their viewers, whether it's for 30 seconds or a minute, is worth that collision. So here's what I would say. Fox News has got to seek a new narrative. I think they know that. And I'm very proud of the way they handled, as a former Fox News employee, I hosted Wall Street Week for them on the Fox Business Channel. I was proud of the way they handled things last night. I thought it was an independent standard. I thought it was an objective standard from the Fox News decision desk. It reminded me of 2008 when Megyn Kelly reached the verdict with the Fox News decision desk that President Obama was going to win re-election. I still remember the shock on Karl Rove's face that night 12 years ago.
So do I. Yeah.
And I'm just saying they handled it very well last night, and they had the right analysis of Arizona.
Agree.
And ultimately, once Arizona fell, the reason why the president called Rupert Murdoch and laced into him is that he knew once Arizona fell, he couldn't make the colors line up on the Rubik's Cube for himself. And so what I'm appalled by is that the president was told last night before he made that speech by his lawyers, White House counsel, and his aides, don't make the speech. Don't say that you won. Don't say that the quote-unquote votes have to stop.
Right.
I mean, he didn't say the count has to stop. He said the votes have to stop.
Right.
It was implying that there was this tremendous amount of corruption and voter fraud, and we don't have that in our country, thank God. And it's just insidious that he would do something like that. And so this is the issue, though. But here's what I would tell you, because I've studied interwar Germany, I've studied European history, the rise of demagogic leadership. When you have large groups of a population that are not feeling good about themselves and their economic trajectory, they are susceptible to people like Mr. Trump. And remember, you can't get a Donald Trump as president of the United States unless you have a bubbling up of this discontent from a large group in the population. And so we can't ignore that.
Agree.
We have to shine a light on that. We have to accept it. We have to work on ways to cure it. And I'm like the Michael Corleone of politics. I hate this goddamn business. I would like to get out of it in the worst possible way, but I keep getting drawn back in.
I have to ask you. Can I ask you about that?
It's important for me to go out. I thought it was a patriotic duty, frankly, to go out and speak against this man.
It was. We only have 2 minutes left. This will be my last question for you, Anthony, and you alluded to it just now. I want to ask you, listen, you're an extremely successful businessman, extremely intelligent guy, very well spoken, okay? There are Democrats that have a lot of respect for you doing what you've done over the course of the last year or so. And by the way, there's a lot of Republicans that have a lot of respect for you as well. They might not admit it, but they do. With that being said, I know you don't like the political spectrum, but there's a lot of people, I think, out there, and I don't think I speak alone when I say that would like to see you run for office somewhere. You would certainly have my vote. I think you're an extremely intelligent guy and honest. So what are your thoughts on that? We only got about a minute here.
Look, it's very flattering. All this I would say to you and your listeners, I'm running for re-election in my marriage. And as far as I know, I think I'm on like a one-day term here. I mean, once in a while they throw food at me here in the basement, but I'm on a constant campaign over here. And for all I know, I could be on term limits, So, I want to focus on my family for right now.
Sure.
I'm not a politician, but I will say this. If there was an opportunity that presented itself where I thought I could make a meaningful contribution and I thought I could do it in a way that would be not overly destructive to my family, I would be open to it.
Well, Anthony, you're a good man, my friend, and I'm glad that you're one of the voices of reason. So I appreciate that. All right, so we are going to take take this to the end of the hour. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be on. I hope I can get out to see you guys soon.